Breaking news, President Trump's legal team preparing for special counsel Robert Mueller to request an interview with Trump. And sources tell CNN the president's lawyers are looking to limit the parameters of what the interview would cover. Trump's lawyers also reportedly looking into whether the interview would be in person or if there is a way that they could just provide a written statement. Out front now, Democratic Congressman Denny Heck, a member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Heck, I appreciate your time tonight. So let's just start with the reporting that we have here. Mueller looking at an interview. Trump's lawyers are looking into how they could limit the scope of that interview, including this crucial point, whether it needs to be under oath and whether it can be recorded. What's your reaction to those two limitations that they would like?
Well, my reaction to the whole question, Aaron, and thank you for having me on, is in Bob Mueller I trust. Thus far, during his 7+ months of conducting this investigation, he's done so with the utmost of professional standards, and I trust that he will take this next step in a way that serves our national interest in every regard. So I have a lot of faith in Director Mueller.
A lot of faith in Director Mueller, but when the Trump team is considering, they want to know whether it has to be under oath. What does that say to you?
Well, Aaron, throughout the past year, we have been treated to kind of this nonstop, periodic revelation of new information. And they keep moving the goalpost on what it is that is being represented here. I'm not surprised in the slightest bit that there is some pushback on this. But again, I have a lot of confidence in Bob Mueller. He's going to get at the truth, and frankly, I think he'll get at the truth whether the president chooses to cooperate or not.
Whatever deals he makes, if he doesn't get the interview and it's written, you're confident he'll get what he needs to get.
Yes, he's earned our confidence, Aaron. He's earned our confidence.
Do you think the president has anything, he himself, the president, to say about possible collusion with Russia?
Well, he's done nothing but say for the last year that there was no collusion with Russia and the interference in our election. As a matter of fact, he seems to be taking the tack that if he says it often enough, it becomes truth. But in fact, collusion has been hiding in plain sight here, whether it is the Trump Tower meeting last June or a year ago June, or whether it was the email communication with Wikipedia or WikiLeaks, I'll get it yet. The fact of the matter is that there was collusion, and that's been firmly established. I don't even think that's arguable at this point.
So the president, I also want to ask you about this bipartisan meeting on immigration he has tomorrow. It's a crucial thing. It's the next big agenda. 800,000 young people in this country are affected by DACA, right? The Dreamers Act. And he says he'll protect them. He'll do that for Democrats if you guys fund his border wall. He has asked for a total of about $30+ billion for a wall and additional security measures. Will you give that to him to get 800,000 people in this country the right to stay?
I think there are two very good reasons why we ought to deal with the Dreamers before too much longer, Aaron. The first of which is the human story, that these people are living in abject fear and under the shadow of being returned to a country that they have no recollection of and that they do not identify with. And the second is, it's in our best economic interest to deal with this. But look, Aaron,
but will you make that deal?
Aaron, now is the time for accountability. From the time he rode down that escalator in Trump Tower and announced his candidacy, right up to and after his election to the presidency, he said on an almost daily basis, we're going to build the wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. We ought not to let him off the hook of that promise, which he made not once, not twice, but an infinite number of times during his campaign.
All right, I'll give you that, although I just want to point out you didn't directly answer my question. Before we go...
Okay, let me deal with it, Aaron.
Right, so will you make that deal?
Democrats will make a deal on increased border security. Now, whether or not that includes a wall is highly suspect. Okay. What we ought to do is be smart about this. And we ought to have improved border security, but that can take a lot of forms. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump said an infinite number of times Mexico would pay for this wall. And now he's gone back on that promise like he has a lot of others.
Before we go, Oprah, what do you say?
I'm going to tell you a quick story. As it turns out, my wife and I are the adoptive parents of two sons, both at birth. The younger one happens to be African American. And I can remember vividly and as though it were yesterday when the little guy was about 4 or 5 years old. We were watching a Seattle Mariner game and future Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr. came to bat. At this point, my son had no self-awareness of the difference of his racial heritage versus his parents. And I will remember that he looked down at his arm and he caressed it and he said, he has the same color skin I do. And frankly, Aaron, I cried. I cried because his first self-awareness was associated with a positive role model like Ken Griffey Jr. Now, fast forward more than 2 decades. I now have, by that son, a 3-year-old granddaughter. And I can well imagine the impact it would have on her as a human being if Oprah did run, and if Oprah were elected. The message to her would be anything is possible, no matter who you are in this country, no matter what the color of your skin.
Congressman Hack, thank you.
You're welcome.
And next, could President Trump be bounced from office using the 25th Amendment?